Hello and welcome to Low Budget Gaming and welcome to another first Descendant video. So back with another calculation type of video. This one is kind of important. This is how to calculate your skill power. Okay, how the modifiers work, how the skills calculate all the numbers, and I've tried to make it as simple and as bare bones as I can. So at the moment we have Enzo over here. If you look in the skill section, there is nothing being added here. So Enzo doesn't do chill. I've put a random reactor so that we don't get non-attribute power. And we have tech skill power. Enzo uses dimension and singular. So there is no base skill power. There's no non-attribute skill power. There is no dimension skill power. There's no skill power modifier, no dimension skill power modifier. So I'll add those things one by one and show you the simplest calculations that you can do. So what we are going to do is we are going to summon the Order of Truth level 1. Reason I'm summoning this is because the Order of Truth has no resistance to non-attribute and they have no defense. Okay, so when I hit them, I'll see the full damage number. There won't be any hidden resistances and things like that. And I've also picked level 1 for the same reason. So if you see here, our skill power here is 20,352, which is basically what we get from the reactor. We will be using Enzo's second skill, this one here. So if you look at the explosive drone, burst damage, skill power times 2879%. Okay, that is the simple calculation. The skill power is the one we saw outside, which is 2352.171. Now with every other Descendant almost, you will not get this full number. You will get something below this. You'll get 18,700 or something like that, depending on the enemy's level, enemy's resistance to that element, and things like that. So that is why I've picked Enzo, because you can see the full picture clearly and without any other variables complicating things. So hopefully this clears up a lot of confusion. All right, so let's begin by first hitting the Vulgus with our second ability. So we'll use the drone. We got 585939. Okay, so if we go back to our inventory screen, we have 20,352.171. So 20,352.171. Okay, and if we look at our second scale, skill power times 2879%. So we multiply this by 28.79. Our number is 585939.003. So if you look at the screen here, 585939. Obviously, they are not showing you the decimals. So 585939. Okay, exactly what we want to see. Okay, now I'll slowly add one or two things and we can then figure out how each of the things work. So back to the inventory. Now, the simplest way of understanding the skill power and the difference between the modifiers is where you see the skill power, all your skill powers, your base skill power, your element skill power, your dimension skill power, that will get multiplied with that skill power number. Okay, and all your modifiers will get added to that 2879. Okay, that is how simple it is. So we will add one element. Let's put non-attribute power. So we can either do it from a reactor. Let's find a reactor that is only non-attribute. Okay, we'll add this one because this is non-attribute. We are not using tech, so that doesn't apply. So if you look here, we have 0.2 times. So what we will do for this is 20,352.171. Multiply this by 1.2, because if we multiply by 0.2, we'll only get 0.2 of that number. So we are adding that to this. So we get 24,422.6052. So we've only added the non-attribute power. So this is multiplying to our skill number. Skill power multiplied by 1.2. Okay, so now we go back to the Vulgus, we reset the damage number, we hit them again. We are getting 703,126. So this is our number, and we once again multiply this by 28.79. 28.79. Okay, 703.126. 703.126. So they seem to be not rounding the 0.8 to 17. Okay, so we are getting the same number. Basically, we do the multiplication to the skill from the base skill to that. Okay, now we add another skill power, let's say. So we added the non-attribute on the outside. Let's add dimension. Now dimension only gives us modifier here, so we'll have to use a reactor for that. So let's say we pick a reactor like this. So this is giving 0.2 non-attribute and 0.2 dimension. Okay, so if you see here, 0.2 non-attribute, 0.2 dimension. So once again, we take this number 2352, 20,352.171, multiply this by 1.2 for the non-attribute, and then multiply that by another 1.2 for the dimension. So the number we are getting is 29,307. Okay, and now once again we multiply this by 28.79. All right, so let's hit the Vulgus. 843,752.1644. That is not displayed obviously, so 843,752. Okay, so we've added the non-skill power, dimension skill power. Now let's also add the base skill power. So we can add skill power, just the skill power. So we can add something like, so we can try spear and shield or something like that. Power increase, we can use power increase, I guess. Power increase will give us 13%. So let's add power increase. Okay, so power increase 13%. So once again, we do the same formula, multiply these three with the 20,352. So 20,352.171, multiply this by 1.13 for the base skill power, multiply that by 1.2 for the non-attribute power, multiply that by 1.2 for the dimension skill power, 33,117.052. Multiply this by our second skill, which is 28.79, and we get once again a number that is going off screen. So 953,439.94. I wonder if they will round this to 440. Let's have a look. Okay, so hit them with our second skill, 953,439. So they are refusing to round this one. But yeah, you can see we get the same number. So now we've added the three types of skill powers. Now we can add the modifiers. Okay, so the modifiers, now the modifiers will go to that second section, 2879. Now, if we see this, this is a dimension skill. So if we add the dimension skill power, dimension skill power modifier would be amplification, right? And this one here. So dimension skill power modifier plus 19%. If we put this here, this gets added to our 2879. However, it does not show up in the tooltip. If you add something like skill power modifier, something like Iron Master, Iron Defense, sorry. So this is 12.7. This 12.7 will show up here. So this 2879 will become 2891.7. Okay, 2891.7. Okay, so if we do the calculations again, we have 20,352.171. We add, multiply this by 1.13 for the base skill power from the power increase. We multiply that 1.2 for the non-attribute power, we multiply this by 1.2 for the dimension skill power, and so we get 33,117. And then we multiply this with this number. So instead of 28.79, we are going to multiply this by 28.917. So we get 957,645. Okay, so let's see. 957,645. Also notice how minute of a difference this made from the previous. So if you have a high number, adding a little bit of modifier is not going to make anything. However, if you have a very small number, adding a big modifier makes a difference. This is why people say if you have a very low number for your second value, the modifier, adding a modifier is more helpful. But if you have a high skill power number over there, the modifier, then adding modifier makes no difference. So you can skip the modifier in something like this. Okay, so we added the modifier. Let's also add the dimension modifier. Why not? Skill power modifier, so specialist. So we see the 2891.7. So basically what's happening is 2891.7, and we are adding the 19 to this. So it is actually 2910.7. Okay, so this is the number you have to keep in mind when we put everything together and multiply it. So once again, let's start from the beginning, put all of this together. 20,352, which is our base damage, our skill power on the inventory screen that you see. Multiply this by 1.13 for the base skill power increase. Multiply this by 1.2 for the non-attribute power increase. And then you multiply this by 1.2 for the dimension skill power increase. And you get 33,117.052. So this is your skill power number that you will be multiplying. And then as we just saw, we will multiply this by 29.107 because we added the 19 here and the 12.7 here. The 12.7 shows up here, the 19 doesn't. So now 29.107 will give us 963,938.05. So let's finally check this. 963,938. As you can see on the calculator, obviously, like I said, they don't add the decimals. So this is how the skill power and the modifiers work in the game. Anyway, so hopefully that was helpful. If you understood everything, great. I wanted to make it as simple as possible, like I said, and hopefully this explained the skill power and how the modifiers are working. And basically, if nothing else, your takeaway should be that if the number here, skill power times 2879, if it's very big in the several hundreds or the thousands, then don't worry about the modifier. Add more to the skill power. If your number here is very small, like we have with the supply ship over here, like 15.9 or something, then you add more to it. Every little bit will help quite a lot. Anyway, that's it. Thank you for watching. See you next time.